Hey everybody, I hope you're doing well. Today, as the title suggests, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Artemis Fowl series, the good and the bad. So I only own two of the books. I have the first and the second one. But I have long since been a fan of the Artemis Fowl series. I love the character Artemis Fowl. I think he's really fun. If you don't know anything about these books, so it's a middle grade book that is about a very, very intelligent Irish boy. It's written by Owen Colfer, and Owen Colfer, very Irish. He goes to his roots and essentially he uses a lot of fairy lore from mostly Irish like myths, I think, to my knowledge, and kind of created this idea of in on Earth there are fairies, but fairies live underground to avoid the big folk, right? The mud men, I think is what they refer to us to, and because we are too much of a mess. But there's a lot of magic in the world that we just don't see because now it lives underground, and magical things do happen, but we're just too dumb to see it, basically. Um, but then there's this one Artemis Fowl, this boy who is, I think he's 12. I think he starts out 12. I don't remember how old he is by the end of the series, but I'm pretty sure he's 12 in the first one. And he is extremely intelligent. His father is actually like the head of like kind of a Irish mafia situation, criminal mastermind situation. But his father goes missing, and Artemis is left with his very ill, mentally ill mother, who is bedridden, and he is desperate as the only man of the house at 12 years old to find a way to save his father. And he believes the only way to do that is to find fairy magic. And so he spends, I don't remember how long, maybe a year or so of time searching for a fairy book. This is like, it looks like the fairy book would look. I can't remember what the fairy book is specifically called. But anyway, he wants to catch a fairy and he needs the fairy book to be able to do that. So the beginning of the book starts with him actually getting his hands on it. He actually taught himself how to read the fairy language and all this kind of stuff. So he's very intelligent. And that's why I think I was drawn to this character. I love those overly intelligent characters because they are so fun to watch, if they're fun to read about, but also when they, pride comes before a fall, and when they fall, and they get humbled, I'm always like, yes. And let me tell you, Artemis gets humbled in almost every single book. So, I mean, he still kind of keeps up the facade of I'm this super, super intelligent dude, but it actually, as time goes on, and the storybooks go on, he actually mellows out quite a bit and he becomes much more compassionate and his motivations change, um, which I really liked about his character. He has a really good character arc. However, there are a lot of things that I actually don't like about Artemis Fowl anymore. The book series, not necessarily the character. But yeah, so I'm gonna go into that because I read this whole series like a long time ago, and really before I kind of rededicated my life to Jesus, like seriously became a Christian. I've always been raised in a Christian household and everything. I guess, and I'm not going to say that like, but I feel like last year when I realized, I feel like it just, something happened, something clicked, something changed, and like I really experienced that rebirth. So I don't know if this whole time I've just been acting a fool and not, there was a long period of time when I just wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. I hadn't let go of all the things I should have been let go of. And last year was really a cutting off of everything. And so everything changed. The way that I viewed things changed. I mean, God, He's with me and I'm so grateful. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. That He opened my eyes to areas that I had not surrendered and things that I need to change. So I'm extremely blessed for that. I mean, yeah, I mean, I am reborn. Hallelujah. And I never experienced that before. So, despite living a Christian life for so long, I don't think I ever really had that change happen until then. So, last year, I started picking up reading again because I let go of a lot of things that were distractions. And so it made room for reading. And okay, yeah, family came home. So I got a little distracted there for a second. So, oh my gosh, I wish I could remember what I was saying. Oh yes, so I was born again. So I was born again, and rededicated my life to the Lord and everything, very serious business, and everything really changed. The way that I viewed things changed, the way that I walked changed, and everything. But I picked up reading again, and one of the first things, actually, via audiobook. The audiobooks for these are so good, through Libby, the app. And um, so I started listening to it. And the first one, I love the first book, okay? It's so good and it's so funny and it's so charming. And the second one is equally good. Especially since I feel like it's called the Arctic Incident. I feel like this is the one where he rescues his father from the evil bad guys, and with fairy help, of course. And uh, like this is when Artemis Fowls, like, I mean, technically he never really was totally selfish in his motivations because he wanted to help his father, but you see him like going out of his way to help his dad in this one. It's really good. And anyway, I these two are great. And the one after it I think is the Eternity Code. That one's really good. um but then there is one, and I can't remember if it's the fourth one or the fifth one. I think it's the fourth one, but I don't remember anymore. But it's called Artemis Fowl and the Lost Colony. No, it is the fifth one because the Opal Incident is before then. That one's also good. I really like the Opal Incident. But the Lost Colony is where Owen Colfer totally loses me. And I totally forgot about this entire thing. So in obviously this story follows a lot of fairies and fairy-like creatures like centaurs, elves, goblins, orcs, trolls, those kind of things. They exist in this underground fairy world. And Artemis Fowl, he becomes friends with some of them that are part of Leprechaun, LEP, Lep Recon. They're actually like agents, basically, like police of the underground. Okay, it's not a type of creature, it's a status more than anything. And Holly Short is the fairy that he kidnaps and then eventually becomes friends with. And there's also the centaur. Oh, I wish I could remember his name off the top of my head. I'd have to look it up. I'm not going to worry about it. But there's a few characters, fairy characters, that he ends up making friends with, and they help him throughout. And there's other fairy lore that comes out throughout the books, which is fun. It's fun. There's antics and silly things that happen. But then in the Lost Colony, they totally lose me because Owen Colfer makes out that the Lost Colony is are demons, okay? But instead of making them, it's like he's making them part of the fairy group, part of the people. That's what the fairy groups are called. So they're the people. So it's like making demons into fairies, which is like so not what they are, obviously. But so their origin is that demons first existed as microorganisms on the moon. And the moon was struck by a meteor, a chunk broke off, hurtled into space, the chunk landed on Earth, and eventually the island that they landed on, the microorganisms evolved into demons, which is a wild, I mean, okay, it's totally fictional, 100%. But my thing is why do you have to use the terminology demon for something like that, like an alien, basically? Like, you could have named them anything else. And the problem with it is the demons aren't the bad guys. They're part of the people. There are bad guys that are demons, don't get me wrong, but they're not bad. The whole group is not bad. If they were like the villains, the overarching villains of the story, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But that's not what they are. And I think that's a problem, especially in children's media. And I don't know why this didn't bother me back before when I read it, like maybe in 2018 or 2019. But it didn't. I guess I just figured, oh, it's just silly and it's part of the lore. But now, like, I mean, I just think things like that are just so serious, right? Like, we don't want to confuse our kids about what demons are, that some demons could be friendly or they're just like a group of fairies or whatever. Like, again, I know this is fiction, and fiction is fiction. It's not real. I'm well aware of that, but I think when we, as a general consensus, we all kind of have come to the agreement that demons are evil and anything demonic is something evil, right? So therefore, if this story is presenting demons in a different light as maybe friendly or like, that just feels not okay. You know, The Bible obviously makes it very explicit that demons are evil creatures. They're angels that fell from heaven. They decided to defy God and do evil, and they're a big problem, in this world. We may not see them, but they are a big problem. The unseen realm is actually where all of the shenanigans happen. You know what I'm saying? As much as here. So I just want to, I guess I wanted to make this to kind of, because Artemis Fowl is a very famous book series. And for me, when I was rereading it, I'm like, oh, I'm going to reread this. And eventually one day I'll read these to my kids and my kids will have fun with them, or my nieces and nephews or whatever. But as I reread it, I'm like, yeah, these are the only two books that I would approve for my kids to read. And that's because it's mainly, well, even the two that come after, the Eternity Code is the one that comes after it, where he's like trying to break into this like supercomputer. It's like, I think it's a fairy computer. And he does that with the help of his friends. And then the Opal Deception is an evil fairy that ends up, getting defeated by, again, just the regular squad. And those two are also okay because they kind of continue Artemis learning that he's not the most intelligent guy around and he has to be humbled, but also he's learning to trust his new friends. He's learning to maybe not be so reckless with his words and his behavior. There's a lot of good things that happens. I'm not saying Artemis is like a perfect example of like for your kids or anything. He's not really a role model, but you see, like, he has learning moments throughout the stories that I can appreciate. But once it gets to the Lost Colony, you really lose me on that. And even though the ones that go past that when he gets a little bit older, I really like as well, because again, I like his character growth. But with the addition of him having a demon friend, because he does befriend one of them, I can't remember the guy's name, but he does befriend one of them. It's just that you lose me, dude, because he's a good demon. So I guess I just wanted to make this video briefly just for people who maybe you've never read the Artemis Fowl series and maybe you're curious about it or you want your kids to read it. I would caution you to not. If you don't want, I mean, if you can tell your kids, hey, you can read the first one and that's it, we're not going to read anymore, or you just don't want to start it at all, that might be the best thing to do. I don't even know, I haven't decided yet because I got rid of all my other Artemis Fowl books. But I only had one that was after the Lost Colony, which was the Atlantis complex, which was one of my favorite ones because Artemis Fowl kind of loses, he has like a mental break, and he has to really rely on his friends to help him to get better and also to kind of come back to himself. And he really gets humbled in that one. Okay. And I really enjoyed that one, but with the addition of that little demon character, I was just like, this is not cool, dude. This is not okay. We are not supposed to be friends with demons. This is insane. Um, and especially again for kids, even if they're like, Owen Colfer, I just want to know why you couldn't make them like aliens. They could have been aliens, and I would have been fine with that because aliens aren't real in any capacity whatsoever. But demons absolutely are. And how confusing is it for a kid if in your story, even though it's fiction and they know it's fiction, that demons are the good guys or can be the good guys, and yet in reality, in the Bible, in a Bible study, you read about demons and they are all the bad guy. Okay, they're the big, big, big problem. Okay. Um, not bigger than our God, though, let's just be clear, but they're a problem, and we don't want to be friends with them, okay? So I guess I just wanted to make this to caution you about, well, first of all, if you read middle grade, be careful. But also, if you, um, if you want your kids to read the Artemis Fowl series and you see that it's super popular and a lot of people talk highly of it and whatever, I mean, just be careful because there is content in there. Like the fairies aren't real in any capacity, and I think his fairy lore is pretty funny. Um, there's dwarves and things like that. It's pretty funny, okay? But it's just anyway, once it gets to that point. So I would just caution you, use your wisdom, pray about it if you really want to. But there are actually so much middle grade for Christians. There's a lot of Christians out there writing middle grade. Ted Decker being one of them. Ted and Rochelle Decker, I think his daughter writes it too. Oh man, I think I have some others that are really good. But there's also just other. Oh yeah, Peterson, On the Edge of the Dark Sea of Darkness, the Wingfeather Saga. That's also really good. The Grave Thief by Dehan, also great, and she's a Christian as well. Um, Here, let me just grab them so you can see them. So Wing Feather Saga, those are middle grade and Christian, and this is middle grade and Christian. So there are better options, if you will, if you want the and if you're looking for a witty, maybe a smart aleck kind of kid, you know, I mean, you're probably not going to find it in those necessarily, but you're still going to, maybe that's for the best. Maybe we don't need our kids to read about smart alecks. I don't know. But there's so many other options for middle grade and for adventure and fairies or fantasy or whatever. Obviously, oh, the Chronicles of Narnia. Hello, there's all kinds of cool. They're centaurs, okay? But the bad guys are the bad guys, okay? Evil, dark stuff is evil and dark. So, yeah, I was definitely challenged when I saw that. But as soon as I read that, I knew in my heart, I'm like, there's no way. You don't mess with this stuff, you know? You don't make nice what isn't nice. And I think right now, especially among YA, there is a lot of like this really dark witchcraft or like, even demons and things like that, but they try to make them the sympathetic characters or, you know, uh, not necessarily the good guys, but I think we're almost okay with the bad guys, you know, and that's also not okay. Anyway, it concerns me. And I think those kind of feelings can start this young when you are, writing that, well, the bad guys might not be so bad, or I might posit they're not even bad guys. You know what I mean? And so that's not okay. So anyway, these two have nothing like that in them. If you don't like fairies or anything, then you won't like this. But these two are good. I think that they're funny. I think that they are have good character moments in them. And Artemis Fowl is, though not necessarily a role model, he's still a interesting and fun character to read. And I would personally, I think, well, maybe not. I don't know. I have to think about what to do if I was going to ever read this to a child. But I think I would with just these two. I don't think I would go on, and I think I would warn my children about going on. I don't have any children yet, but if I was to read these to a child, I would say, we just read these two, we don't read on. But then again, why do I want to put that even in their minds? So maybe not even there. But either of these are great. These are great choices for adventure and excitement and mystery and fantasy without without no demons. First of all, yes, there is a spooky looking creature in this one, but it's trust me when I say it is so good. And this one I haven't gotten super far in, but there are bad guys in this. But the bad guys are the bad guys. The evil looking dudes are evil. And um anyway, I don't think there's any demons in the Wing Feather Saga. I haven't finished it, but either way, they're the bad guys are the bad guys. And I think that's really, we have to make things clear for kids because nowadays in our society, I feel like things aren't clear all the time. We keep blurring the lines of what is and what always has been and making it seem like, well, maybe if you feel that way, it's fine, kind of a thing. And I think we ought not do that, especially in fiction. And yes, of course, like, again, this is fiction and it's ridiculous fiction and it's fairies and it's silly and it's all that. But again, we're blurring that line of evil being, well, maybe it's fine. Maybe it's fine. Maybe it's not so bad. And I just think we don't need to do that for our children when already in our society we're having those issues in schools and for the most basic things like men and women, what are men and women, and all this stuff. So we don't need to blur that line for anybody else in any other thing, especially in fiction. Fiction is supposed to be fun and uplifting. Let's not blur that. So it was really disappointing to me to reread it and see like that, especially once I got to the Lost Colony. I feel like I remember listening to the audiobook of the Lost Colony and being like, this is giving me the creeps. I'm pretty sure I listened to the whole thing because I finished the series. Um, yeah, so I must have, but I'm pretty sure I also skipped a lot of it. I think any chapter, because there was a couple of in the Lost Colony, instead of it just being focused on Artemis Fowl, there was like it jumped a lot. Well, I mean, I guess the other books did this too, but it jumped into other characters' POVs. And anytime it jumped into the demon character's POV, I skipped those chapters because I was like, I don't want this. This is weird and creepy. And so there you go. There you have it. I think that's all I'm going to say on that. Just putting it out there. If you love the Artemis Fowl series and you can read it and you don't feel conviction about it, then because of how fantastical and ridiculous the story is, then okay, that's great. Like if you can separate it from reality, that's great. I just think when you're using certain terminology like demons, then you can't, like, you shouldn't. You just shouldn't. Make up something else. Make up another name for something, because again, that's real, and I just don't think you want to mess or blur the lines between what's real and what is not. You know what I mean? Because it is real. It's kind of like, it'd be like, I don't know, eh, just don't mess with what's real. We don't want to be confused about that, and we certainly don't want to confuse our children about that. So anyway, I just keep repeating the same thing over again, so I'll just stop right there. But if you guys have any thoughts on this, let me know below. And if you know some middle grade that's maybe fantasy or maybe has fairies that is safe, clean, good for kids to read, then please drop it below. Let's help each other out to find safe media for our children to enjoy, or for ourselves. I love reading middle grade. I have these for me. I don't have children yet. I read these because I think that they're fun. Um, but but we need to have safe media, and we need to be wise because we don't want to let things into our hearts that don't need to be there. And that's kind of how I feel about that. And I guess that's where I'm going to end it. So, um, yeah, let me know below what you think. Thanks for listening to me ramble on and on. And just so you know, I love you, but Jesus loves you way more. And I hope you have a good day. All right, bye.